Well, welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of the Communication Mastery Podcast. And again, I've got a guest with me this time. And so it's great to have Jeff Williamson with me. Jeff's a coach here locally and written a book as well. But Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, your journey to being a coach,
Sure.
how you got to where you are?
So story's a little unusual, but there's a Johnny Cash song, I've Been Everywhere, Man. That's my life. It seems like I've been married for 25 years, and in 25 years, we've moved 16 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So 2 countries, 4 to 5 different states, and then several places within those states. But where I'm at today and why I'm passionate about coaching, I've always had just the opportunity to coach other people. I've had, in different vocational opportunities, but where it just really kind of got super, concentrated, so to speak. It's, I would say, just I had all these great opportunities where I got to join the John Maxwell team, Liz Wiseman as a multipliers coach, going to be going to see Franklin Covey in a few months too. So just a lot of opportunities came my way, but, I'll be 48 in a few months, and it's just the idea that all this training, all these things, all these opportunities I've had have been great, but where's the application, and what am I doing, and how am I able to use this in such a good and mighty way that's going to bless other people, as I've been blessed so much in my own life. So it just kind of got the realization, it's like, time's not staying still for anybody.
Right.
And it's time to actually put some of, I guess, your money where your mouth is kind of thing, and to put these things into action. So
that's cool. It's great to see you you're taking it in, but you're giving it away. That whole process, one of the one of our mottos on the podcast is that everyone communicates, but few people communicate effectively. Mm-hmm. And part of that is to do what you just put your finger on. We need to learn before we teach or before we coach. But I love what you're doing there, where you're taking it in from different directions, mm-hmm. and then giving it away.
Yeah, I think it's important, and just like you say, the realization that I'm going to be able to lead based on how I've been fed and kind of what's in my tank. And if my cup is on low, or if I'm just kind of, meandering around and not really, putting anything in the gas tank, it's just going to be a substandard product. So the more I, read books or to get engaged in different podcasts or different trainings, it's going to allow me then to level up so I can lead people better then.
That's great. And those of you who are familiar with the podcast, you'll know we talk a lot about when your tank gets empty, particularly in the area of communication. And so it's so important that we refuel.
That's right.
And that's why, I've followed you for a while, and I love the way you're always reading books, you're always learning, that kind of thing. And in fact, you've written your own book, Still Marinating. Jeff's first book is out, and I really enjoyed reading this. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to get you on the podcast, because there's a lot about communication in here, as you've kind of told snippets of your life story and the lessons you've learned from it. The one that hit me first was you learned about communication through wrestling, didn't you? So tell us that story.
So when I was a freshman in high school, there's a high school wrestling team, and just the quick version, you lose more points in wrestling matches if you've disqualified by not having someone in that weight class. And at that point in time, I weighed well under 100 pounds, probably 95 pounds. And the coach, just this huge man, came up to me and asked me if I wanted a varsity letter. Basically, he would know that I was going to get my clock cleaned at each match, but they would lose less points. I would get a varsity letter. Everything's good. So I signed up. My first season, I was 4-31. I was just god awful. Set the school record for getting pinned the quickest. Not for me pinning somebody, but I lost as quickly. I think it was like in 6 seconds.
Fastest loser.
Yeah, it was really awesome. I got that varsity letter though, but it was just the idea that I had really no good quality idea of what I needed to do. They shouted all sorts of ideas at these practices. Hey, make sure you're doing these things and all these different, here's this carry, here's this hold. Here, I didn't pay any attention to any of that kind of stuff at the time. And I watched WWF wrestling, now WWE, I guess, and I just took all my inspiration from Hulk Hogan, and I thought I was just going to tear it up as quickly as I could. And of course, you heard the story. I got just my butt whooped multiple times. The coach is on the side, yelling commands, try this. And it was until those last 4 matches were towards the end of the season when I started to actually pay attention, listen to their communication, and say, he actually might know what he's talking about. I don't like having my arm and leg wrapped around like a pretzel. Maybe I should pay attention. And I got a below average at the end of the season from pretty poor. So I went from got a little bit better. Finally start paying attention, though.
Right. So at the end of the season, it turned around because you started listening. Yeah, I love that. Well, hey, this is a communication podcast, so maybe we could learn something from that.
Yeah.
So tell us, have you been able to apply some of those kind of lessons in other settings since then? I mean, some of us, we don't necessarily apply the lessons we learned in high school, but it sounds like you learned some pretty strong ones there.
Well, I'm not for New Year's resolutions, but I'll say that my theme for this year is active listening. Right. God's blessed me with 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I learned that I can learn a whole lot better when I'm not talking and when I'm listening to other people and hearing what they have to say. And I'm part of this group in our neighborhood, and it's just a bunch of guys that get together, and I like cigars. So the 4 or 5 of us will get around and just have cigars and just enjoy our time over coffee. And I live in a neighborhood where I'm probably 20 years younger than a great majority. Mm-hmm. So I like to hang out, and I just like to listen. There's people that are retired NFL coaches. There are people that are Fortune 500 business CEO retirees, just all sorts of amazing, people that have been philanthropically serving their entire life. So this is just this insane opportunity for me to listen and learn from these people. So it just to apply it from that, if I'm saying, hey, all these great things that I'm doing, all they're hearing is about Jeff. So that kind of selfishly the purpose of getting together, I enjoy the cigar, but it's still to say, hey, I want to hear what you've done in these situations. And it's just been great to draw on that.
That's awesome. So that's kind of like high school on steroids, because you started to learn to listen after you didn't like the pain.
Absolutely.
But now here you are listening before the pain, and that's a great lesson. There's another chapter in here, kind of all around the whole area of self-awareness, mm-hmm. and that's another thing that we talk about a lot here on the podcast. So tell us a couple of those kinds of stories about self-awareness, what you've learned about yourself, maybe even through listening to the guys over the cigars.
Yeah, I mean, it's also too, Liz Wiseman talks about it in Multipliers as an accidental diminisher. And a lot of times you go into situations thinking, hey, I've got the best of intentions and all these different things that I think are going to serve us well in these situations. And, as they say, the 20,000-foot view, you kind of take a look and see how the entire situation's going and the entire picture is going. And you realize, wow, I'm really striking out here. It's like sometimes it's funny. You try to, even speak louder or try to, to become more engaged into your conversation, but you're realizing you're only making things worse. And I'm like, good gracious.
Digging a deeper hole.
Why is this not happening? So there's been countless times, and it's thankfully I'm starting to listen here. I guess old dog can learn new tricks, right? But through self-awareness, it's just allowed me to, and it's just like the cigar meetings. It's if they come over and they just listen to me yap on about my day and my, this and my that, and they listen. I mean, they're great guys. It's kind of the purpose though, is just to enjoy one of those companies. So it took a while. I said I'm a recovering chatterbox, as an extrovert. It's the excuse that we like to talk all the time and don't really listen well. So that's why I chose active listening as my theme for this year and my item. And so far, pretty good, actually. There's been a lot of opportunities I've gained even just based on that.
Right. Now, it strikes me that you had to learn to listen to coaches in high school, mm-hmm. and now you're talking about active listening, but you are a coach.
That's right.
So just talk to us about that kind of contrast. Where does the listening fit in with your coaching, and how do you use that?
So as a coach, the idea is seek betterment in other people and have them become the best version of themselves. So specifically in leadership coaching, I'll have people that I'll sit and talk with and just kind of hear about what's going on, and they'll have situations as about organization or this or that. But it's if I'm always talking, giving this grandiose advice and saying, hey, have you thought about this? What are you reading here? How do you check this and this? They're not going to feel connected with. It's not going to be a qualitative relationship at all. They're going to say, well, time's up. what did I really even gain in this experience?
What am I paying you for?
Yeah. Do I even want to come back?
Yeah.
But it's different with every person we speak with. But if Dale Carnegie said in How to Win Friends and Influence People, the only thing that some people might even have in themselves is just their name, and it's just the value of their name. So they want to feel listened to and feel heard. And a lot of times we'll have conversations with people, and we'll forget that name right after they tell it to you. But it's just having that engagement and letting people know that they matter. So whatever the situation is, or whatever their trial is, whatever their obstacle is, you're gonna be a lot better to find options to move ahead if you hear some of the idiosyncrasies that they're sharing. Right. So again, less me talking, and it's like allowing me to serve better.
So there's something very special about active listening as opposed to just regular listening. Most of us, we listen so that we can answer or react or so we can ignore sometimes. But talk to us a little bit more about active listening. What sort of things are going through your head to help you be an active listener when you're coaching somebody?
So I sometimes will say, hey, I know you hear me, but I need you to listen. And it's kind of the other side of that. I want to make sure I'm listening and not just hearing somebody. Right. A lot of times, and from personal experience, I'll have one, right on my hip here. I know when that person finishes their conversation point, whether it's coaching or just, whatever, this is what I'm going to interject. This is what I'm going to say. But sometimes they continue to talk and continue to, and you're like, I still need to say this thing, but you're completely missing what they're having to say. You get just a portion of it. And then it's less evidence to how we can then better coach and better lead. So I've learned that through great trial and error, that again, it's just like I need to pause myself and really get to the heart of what someone's issue is or obstacle is, and a lot easier to do that if I'm not really trying to interject and put myself in a self-centric way.
Right. And do you find that sometimes it takes a while to get to what the real issue is? So you're actually needing to ask them, so what else? Or tell me more, that kind of thing as well? Yeah,
leading with open-ended questions and trying to maintain and drive as a qualitative of a conversation is easily the best method I've found. It's hard to get to the real, I guess, crux of the issue if, again, you're kind of half in and half out thinking about the questions and that sort of thing. There's natural pauses that people will have, and you kind of wait for those. It's a body language that you start to really kind of pick up on. But again, it's been one of those things where I've coached horribly, where I just talk probably a good majority of the time. One of my leadership coaches that coaches me, he says that he tries to speak less than 20% of the time, and he does a great job with that. So that is kind of almost something I have in my head too as I try to approach the situation.
Yeah, oh, that's great. I love that. And I'm just thinking a little more about when you do have something to say. Tell us a little bit about how you might adapt that to different people that you're coaching, because like you said, every person's different. So talk to us a little bit about adapting to the others' needs as you coach.
Well, and like you're saying, it all depends on where they're coming from, whether it be organization that they're talking about, efficiencies, ways to become more engaged in certain organizations or whatever the case might be. But I found asking open-ended questions. Have you thought about doing this? What is something that's holding you back in this area? How do you see this as an obstacle? Not me saying, I see that this happened here, and I think you should not do that anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But people will grow more when even though you're planting the seed and you're trying to position, hey, what do you think about this? They're going to gain so much more when they kind of come to it also, collectively with the idea of where you're headed. So I had one person I was talking with, and I said, well, hey, have you considered sitting with your fiance and sitting down and talking through some of these objectives and things where, it seems like by doing this, you'll be able to tackle some of these things. Have you thought about that? Oh, well, I mean, I guess that makes, and it's worked out pretty well.
Right.
Just kind of, and again, you position it with each person that you're dealing with. You don't want to have the one size fits all, same paintbrush mentality, but you can only actively do that through listening well.
Right. So it sounds like the active listening leads you to a place where you can help a person have their own aha moment.
That's right.
Where they feel like they've discovered it.
That's right.
You kind of helped them get there.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, cool. What I loved about the book is that you've got lots of sort of lessons from your own journey, but you've called it Still Marinating.
That's right.
So just talk to us about that a little bit.
So I ran a marathon in 2006, and I thought that was great. That was my goal. I was like, hey, this is going to be what I'm going to do. My entire year is going to be wrapped around this. So got all the videos and all the things, and my buddy and I, we lost weight together, stopped drinking. I call it pop. You guys call it soda here, and I will say that I hold pretty hard and fast to that. But we stopped drinking all just basically water and iced tea and coffee. So the race day came. We ran, great race. Everything was great. But my goal was achieved. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was kind of aimless. I just, all right, well, I don't really have anything else to do here. I don't have another.
Done that one.
Yeah, I was like, well, so I didn't run again for 18 months.
Wow.
So 26 miles for the marathon. 18 months later, I ran a 5K, and it was not a good time. I was not in shape for it. But it was that aha moment then to say, I didn't really have, I lived life and I did well, and we had kids, and, just the normal things, but I didn't have anything positioned in my life that was going to be specific to what I can do next and kind of so goal setting is great. I think it's fantastic. I think you should have short-term goals, like medium-term goals. I don't think there's any such thing as a long-term goal. I call that a legacy. Oh. So as you're achieving goals, as you're knocking off things off a checklist and saying, hey, yeah, I ran this 5K, or hey, I worked with this philanthropic organization or whatever, that's great. Have something still, what's up next? Because, we want to make sure that we're leading our lives in a certain way. We want to, hear at the end of the day, well done, my good and faithful servant. We want to hear these great things here, and we want to have our legacy, matching those items. It's kind of like the lighthouse. We want to make sure that we're still, even if we get veered off course, that we're still going back to where that lighthouse is. So after I recognized that, not say I wasted a year and a half of my life, but it was a great lesson in the sense that at that point in time, it's like, okay, well, now I need to start thinking about multiple things in different ways, whether it be parenting or as a spouse, or, vocationally or at church or whatever, goals that I can then do. And as those then get achieved, let's kind of have something else to move ahead.
I love that. So, that's what I was reading into the title, is that you can always do more, you can always grow further, and that's one of the things we love to look at, that constant adapting. When we're talking about communication, just looking at how to adapt moving forward to grow better, to be more equipped to make connections with other people, and I love the way that you've brought that through in the book.
Thank you.
Not just lessons of, so you need to not do what I did, or you need to do what I did, but there's that whole sense of progression.
Yeah. Stephen Covey wrote in Speed of Trust that if you're not growing to get better, you're becoming illiterate and irrelevant in that situation. And today I was leading a group, and of course I'm not going to be one that's going to be on a unicycle juggling, balancing dishes and balls. So I don't mind being irrelevant in that area. But I challenged them and said, you would think with my charisma and smile that my wife would have been won over after one date. But no, you have to get better. You have to continue on. And after 31 years, and I married up, I promise you that. But I still need to work hard and work because that matters. I want to get better in my relationship as a father. I want to get better with my friends and with my people I speak with. I want to always get better. You put your time and passion into things that you expect to see positive returns. So that's exactly why I did. So yeah, it's something that you're never gonna. There's never gonna be a finish line. So still marinating. I enjoy barbecuing and cooking, and I maybe we've all had a situation where you just threw an unmarinated piece of chicken or steak on the grill, and then you had one that you took a lot of time and attention, and put the right rubs on it, and it was very intentional. And which one tasted better? Obviously, the one that you spent a lot more time with.
Right. Yeah. Which then, of course, carries over into your coaching. Don't stop.
Absolutely.
Keep being intentional. Keep taking another step forward. Yeah. No, I love that. That's cool. Now, in contrast to several of my guests, you've not been a client of mine, so I asked you if you wouldn't mind taking the life language profile before we got together like this. So I'd love to hear what you found as you did that, and what you thought of the results you got, because you're kind of fresh to this.
Yeah, so I've taken several different kinds of tests, so I was really intrigued to see what would come from it. Like anything, when I see a question, and we were joking before that, some of the questions, I'm like, well, neither one was really good, in my opinion. But it's funny, the outcome came overthinker, and that's what I tend to be also. I think I can almost get caught up in my thinking before I act on things. Mm-hmm. My wife loves that about me, so tongue in cheek. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of a neat way of going about things. I like the approach with a lot of it, but it certainly did cement a few more ideas about who I am, and probably how others see me.
Cool. And it's interesting you pointed out that your wife recognizes the overthinking.
Oh, yes.
Often we find that opposites have attracted, and
Mm-hmm.
probably she's wired very differently than you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But I love that you highlighted, and I hear this a lot from folks who take their profile. There are some questions in that profile where you really want to choose neither
Mm-hmm.
of the options, but somehow you're forced to, and that kind of draws out truth about yourself.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you get ones where you want to choose both, but you can't.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to pick one. And I love the way they've done that. That it brings you to clarity about yourself by doing that. And so when you get the report back of that, how did that strike you? Did you feel like that gave you affirmation maybe, or insight into things that might be valuable in the future, or maybe things that you would want to pay attention to and make a change in?
I'd say more affirmation than anything. It just, again, solidified ideas and things that I see in myself. And as I continue to grow, and as I continue to, because I have not arrived, there's still, I try to read between
You're still marinating.
Yes. I try to read between 3 and 4 books at a time. So I want to, try to, draw from everybody that what they have to say and different things of that nature. But I guess it does still kind of takes you back to, that on the 6th day, God says he's very well pleased with us, opposed to just being pleased with other, just the sun and the animals and whatever else. So it's a reflection point for me that it's like, what, he is well pleased with me, and well pleased with the things that we're doing. It was kind of that aha moment that sometimes you still need to pause, be still, and know, But so it's sometimes it's those moments where I think I will put in your life in small segments to say, you kind of saw this through this test here, but again, this is just a reaffirmation to say that this is okay, but here's some things that we still might need to work on together.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what I often will do with folks when they've got their results is then we look at how can they take how they are, mm-hmm. and then adapt to the situations and the settings that they find themselves in. What can they learn from themselves, mm-hmm. in order to be able to build bridges? And that's a lot. We talk about that a lot on the podcast. And I think from what you've been saying, that underlines how valuable it is to have that assessment of yourself, to know where you're starting from. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have an approach to evaluate where you're at, it's kind of like, going, and now it's GPS, but going on a trip without a map, right. And having never been there before. I can't drive to Utah, and I'm sure I'd get there eventually, just keep going west for a while, and maybe a little bit north, but eventually you'd hit there. But it's a lot better to have the right tools to get you to display the right types of actions.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, Jeff, the folks who are listening to us are folks who recognize that they can grow in communication and that it's good to learn from others. So, to wrap it up, what would you say to folks who are already focused on learning and already focused on growing that would encourage them or affirm them in that journey?
Well, just know that you're never going to arrive. There's going to be opportunities to smoke cigars with gentlemen that you've never met before. There's a gentleman I'm actually meeting Monday. He never spoken to before, but he just another person connected the two of us. So it's just I'm trying to see this as an opportunity. That I think that there's a lot of things that as long as we're intentional and we're aware of ways that we through self-awareness can say, well, hey, this is an opportunity where I can level up in this spot here. Take advantage of those things. Most people are out there to try to level you up and help you out, and through active listening, you can kind of pick, up on a lot of good things. So, again, if I have my blinders on and if I'm very self-centric on my approach, it gets tough to do much of anything outside of what I already know.
Right. Yeah. No, that's really helpful. Thank you. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for the book.
Yeah.
It's a great value. You can get it on Amazon, so I encourage you to do that. And Jeff, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.